Gene saw his friend. He hurried over and offered welcome high fives. They were hanging out in Matt's cabin, which was the same as all the others, the size of a walk-in closet with metal sink, a bunk, and a buzzing white light in the ceiling. Boy, was I getting worried, and a not-so-quiet Matt grinning. We thought you'd been captured or brainwashed or something. He held his hands with Crumblebun as he talked, her fingers wrapped in the black fabric of her special gloves. You wouldn't believe what's going on, Gene. This is huge. I think I have a pretty good idea, said Gene. Linus smiled. I'm usually not that glad to see you, she said, but I am now. Thanks, said Gene. But he poked his head around one of the cabin doorways. Where's Lucy? He asked. His friends looked at each other worriedly. Then they both shrugged. No Vince either, added Matt. Well, we've got to call them, said Gene. We've been trying, said Linus. Then we have to go get them, said Gene, walking over to the spiral steps leading back to the surface. Linus frowned. We can't, she said. The adults won't let us. The plan is to lie low until Walter and Fred bring the rest of the ales here to safety. We're supposed to sit tight. Sit tight, said Gene. Are they crazy? It's for our own safety, said Crumblebun. Yeah, said Gene, stuffing his hands into his pockets. Well, maybe we should stop thinking about ourselves all the time. Again, Matt and Linus glanced at each other and turned to Gene. Are you sure you haven't been brainwashed? Asked Linus. Gene rolled his eyes. Oh, shut up. Later that night, Gene sat on his bunk, flipped through a book called What's With All This Line, A Young Alien's Time of Change. As he did, a tentacle explored the room, jamming itself into every nook it could find. So far, it had overturned 2 cans of something labeled all-purpose molecular feed solution, set off the spaceship security system, and gotten caught in what looked like a toaster. My life is a nightmare, Gene said to the tentacle. It suddenly stopped what it was doing, seemed to look at him. It flopped from side to side like a dog, tilting its head. Whatever, Gene added. Anxious about his friends, he searched his room for something to occupy him, and he had stumbled upon the Alien Handbook. It started off interesting, but grew complicated quickly. By page 2, he could barely understand it. The chapters had names like Aliens Have Feelings Too, unless they're robots. And is that me glowing? After flipping through a table of contents for 5 minutes, he forced himself to read a few pages. This was a tremendous step, since Gene only read things that could fit onto the back of a cereal box. Turning to the chapter title, The First Week, Get Out of the Paper Towels, he started. It isn't out of the ordinary for a young alien to experience a series of electric shocks before turning into a cloud of gas. Don't panic, this is perfectly normal. And from a Centauri 6, and you're worried about suddenly exploding, talk to your parents. If they don't have a fission-powered particle decelerator, then probably someone else who does. Gene closed the book. Getting out of his bunk, he left his room and walked down the low bunker hallway to the cramped cabin that had converted into a bathroom. A small hummed quietly in the ceiling, casting jagged shadows. He closed the door and locked it. Then he set about getting ready for bed. Every time he moved into the tiny little room, it echoed as if he were inside a submarine. Regardless, Gene tried to get things done as if it were any other normal night, but anything but normal. When Gene tried to brush his teeth, one of the tentacles kept trying to steal the brush and use it to scrub his nose. Then, when he was cleaning his ears, another tentacle snatched a jar of vitamins and tried to jam it down Gene's neck, cap and all. Whenever Gene got upset, a certain tentacle he was starting to call it angry would break something. It started with the plunger and continued on to the mirror, sending shards of glass flying everywhere. Eventually, Gene lost his battle against the slithering nest of blue coils, and he sat down on the closed toilet seat. Can you just stop? He barked, resting his chin on a fist, and they did. Finishing up, Gene got ready to walk back to his bed. As he left the bathroom, he heard clanging footsteps on At the end of the hall, he found Walter Sparrow leaning against the wall beside the mysterious doorway with the big button. The big guidance counselor stared at the box with the serial glass rejection sign on it. It looked as though he was planning on breaking the glass, but he couldn't get up the courage to do it. "Why?" said Gene. Walter flinched and then turned around. "Hey, Gene," he said. "What are you doing up and around?" "I don't know," Gene said. He stuck his head into the weird little chamber to investigate. There wasn't much to it. "What is this room?" "It's not a room," said Walter. "It's an escape pod." Gene's jaw dropped. "You're kidding." "Nope," said Walter. "How do you know?" Walter sighed, his hands jiggling the chain in the pocket of his white linen pants. "Because this was my ship," he said. "Wow," said Gene. "Nice. It's like so vintage and science fiction. Really cool." He gestured to the doorway. "I guess you've never needed to escape then, huh?" "Well, the escape pod has only one destination," said Walter, and that's back home. "The bad place?" So asked Gene, remembering all the talk of Walter's big escape. Walter nodded. "It's just nice to be reminded that I could be back there," he said. "It makes what I've got here on Earth seem that much more special." Gene left Walter staring into the escape pod, but he couldn't shake what the alien adventurer turned the guidance counselor had said. It made him wonder what he had on Earth was special, if anything. Walking back down the hall to his bedroom, he collapsed on the bunk where his laptop sat open. The screensaver drifted with pictures he snapped with his phone. All of them were aliens he'd written about with his friends. Gene grunted, smiling as he watched a particularly good shot of calamari girl floated across the screen. She would have been cute if half her body hadn't looked deep fried. Then a picture of Vince and Lucy filled the screen. As Gene watched the photo brighten, lingered, then fade from view, he thought of his two best friends. He'd just seen them the day before, and he'd already missed them since he couldn't sleep. And since he wanted to read any more of that stupid book, Gene decided to step outside for some air. He was supposed to, but since the reason had never stopped him from doing things before, he wasn't going to let it start. Now, sweatshirt under one arm, he carefully shut the door to his room and tiptoed down the bunker hallway, heading for the spiral staircase that led up and out to freedom.
That it?